So hey anime fans, the series name is What If Naruto Got Harem with Android 21. So let's start the series. The 23rd Tenkaichi Budokai Martial Arts Tournament, the greatest of all, was set to begin on a proud and glorious evening for the people of Earth. It was a place where anyone could come to demonstrate their strength and become the next world champion. No one was more thrilled about this chance than Son Goku, a young, muscular man of 18 who was prepared to compete in the tournament for the third time and knew he would win this time. Tomorrow, he would have to face a strange girl who kept staring at him for no apparent reason, but after that, he would get to show off his skills against Ma Jr., or Piccolo Jr., as he was more popularly known, the son of the legendary Demon King Piccolo. He shared a room with his best buddy and fellow student of Master Rashi, and his enormous black spikes blew delightfully with the wind, while the black-eyed material artist stared up at the now-night sky with a serene expression. I think I know her, Goku thought to himself as he tilted his head, a confused frown on his lips, while Krillin, the bald monk, slept peacefully with a happy smile and a little drool escaping his parted lips. He snorted softly as he wrapped himself like a mummy in his blankets, cocooned in what could be described as a fluffy, warm silk hug. Goku laughed softly at his friend before turning back to the night sky, sighing as he rested his chin on his palm. Goku leaped out the window without even thinking, landing smoothly as he pursued the enigmatic man. The young lady who was strolling around the closed arena, standing among the rows of empty seats admiring the great edifice and trying to close her eyes and visualize tomorrow's match, was quickly located by the black youngster with spiky hair. "Excuse me, miss, I'm sorry to bother you, but I have a feeling we've met somewhere before," Goku said slowly as he worked his way up to the red-headed young lady. As she turned slowly and brushed aside a stray crimson strand, the enigmatic woman said, "Goku? Is that you?" Goku seemed excited as he began to look about, saying, "Hey Suno, if you're here, does that mean Ater is here as well?" Still finding it hard to believe that she was the same lady he had met in Jingle Village all those years ago, Goku screamed, "Suno? Sorry, Goku, it's just me. Ader would have loved to come, but he had to stay home," Suno said as she and Goku left the arena to stroll through the neighboring city. The red-haired girl suddenly found the courage to tell the boy she had harbored feelings for since she was a young child. "Actually, Goku, I'm really happy I found you. I heard about the tournament and I just knew you would be here." With a head tilt and a smile that made the unfortunate girl's cheeks flush a little, Goku said, "You came looking for me, Suno?" She was now observing how much more attractive the victim of her desire had become. Suno said with mild embarrassment, I just didn't think it would be so hard to say," as she found it difficult to express how she felt. Goku abruptly exclaimed, "Come with me," taking Suno's hand and guiding her away from the crowded metropolis. "Eh? Goku, where are we going? What about the tournament?" Goku put a cupped hand to his mouth and called out for his reliable yellow cloud. "Nimbus!" He then told Suno, "My favorite place in the entire world. I think you'll really like it. It helps me when I need to think and will make it back in time." With a laid-back smile. Swoosh! Goku was the first to jump onto his magical yellow cloud, but his pure heart prevented him from falling through. The young martial artist held out his hand for Suno to take. The giant yellow cloud swept down from the sky, stopping and hovering just before the two, waiting for them to jump on and lead the cloud where it needed to go. Despite her nervousness, Suno took Goku's hand without hesitation and gave a small yelp when the powerful warrior effortlessly dragged the young woman onto Nimbus. She laughed and put her arms around Goku's chest to get comfortable, gasping as the cloud gradually lifted them into the air before slicing off in the direction Goku had requested. Goku, pleased to see his longtime buddy having fun, grinned as he saw Suno's lovely hair dancing in the wind and the white fluffy clouds nearby. Of course, she couldn't resist the opportunity to reach out and touch the ball of moisture. In a short period of time, Goku was able to recognize his house and, more significantly, the grave of his adored grandfather, Gohan. The young martial artist bowed and clasped his hands together, grinning solemnly. Suno followed her friend's example by bowing to Goku's grandfather. After he sighed and hummed to himself, Goku led the red-haired teenager to a lovely clearing where they built a fire to stay warm using nearby broken branches and a basic ki blast. Suno paused to remark, "It's been so long since we've seen each other, but knowing you, Goku, you've probably been busy on all sorts of adventures." After basking in the warmth of the fire. "Hee, that's true, the last couple years have been particularly crazy. I spent a ton of time training with Kami," Goku stated, nodding and laughing while rubbing his black, spiky hair. Suno tilted her head and asked, "Eh? Kami?" as she tried to visualize what this Kami looked like. Goku answered, half talking to himself, "He's got this giant lookout in the sky, and because of him, I'm way stronger than I was before. I'm sure now I could take out Demon King Piccolo, no problem." The crimson-haired girl praised the martial artist with dazzling eyes, saying, "You really have grown." As Suno gazed at her companion in awe, still finding it hard to believe this was the same young kid with the monkey tail. "Hee, thanks. What about you, Suno? What have you been doing?" Suno told Goku, "Well, nothing quite as exciting as you, but with the help of Ader and the disappearance of the Red Ribbon Army, Jingle Village has never been better. It's so much bigger now," growing increasingly enthusiastic as the passage came to a close because she always felt warm and fuzzy about the expansion of her home and the cooperation of its residents. Goku smiled and added, "I'm so glad. I'll have to come visit everyone sometime." Pleased to see Suno's enthusiasm, Suno grinned and said, "I would love that," before turning back to face the fire. The poor girl's face flushed a little as she shouted out to the young martial artist beside her, "Goku!" With a twist of his head, Goku asked the red-haired teenager, "Yes, Suno?" He questioned whether the fire was too hot, and why Suno's face was so red. As she continued, Suno had Goku's undivided attention. "There's an important reason why I came to see you tonight," she began, looking stunning in the roaring fire and the bright night sky. "Ever since I found and saved you from the cold all those years ago, I felt a way that I couldn't quite describe, or I guess since I was so young, I didn't really know what it was, but I do now," she said. He couldn't quite explain why Suno was making him feel so different, so when the stunning crimson-haired girl pressed her lips against his own, he let his instincts take over. "Suno." Goku whispered out her name as he drew closer, his brows tipping in confusion as he began to feel strange. His face felt like it was on fire, and his heart was beating like a drum. He reacted instinctively, reaching out to grasp and embrace Suno before their temporary separation occurred due to an overwhelming need for breath. The words, "I've loved you since I was a little girl, and now that we're together again, even if it's just for tonight, I wanted to show you how I feel. Let me show you how much you really mean to me," were spoken as Suno caressed Goku's cheek and gazed at him with nothing but passion and desire. Unfortunately, their love would only survive for that one night, but the two were unaware that their passionate act would have long-lasting effects. Son Goku would quickly return to the World Martial Arts Tournament the very next day after bidding Suno farewell and dropping the red-haired woman off at her house in Jingle Village. He would arrive barely in time and almost lose because of his tardiness. But his opponent, the enigmatic woman who had been staring at him the day before, didn't like his rudeness and made it clear as soon as their fight was scheduled to begin. The black-haired woman, who appeared to harbor a deep-seated resentment toward Goku, battled valiantly and with all of her might, but against Son Goku, the formidable warrior? She was no match for Goku, who easily knocked his fellow fighter out of the ring. When the humble fighter went to congratulate his fellow warrior, it was revealed that this mysterious woman was still alive. It turned out to be Chi-Chi, the princess and daughter of the Demon Ox King, whom he had met years earlier. This shocking revelation was followed immediately by the promise Goku made as a young man, one that he didn't fully understand but was still willing to keep, to marry Chi-Chi when they reunited. The recently engaged couple's celebration would have to wait since Goku and Piccolo Jr.'s battle was about to happen, and it was an epic one. These two titans would decide the fate of planet Earth. Even Piccolo had grown to the size of a giant in his attempt to slay his greatest enemy, but Son Goku proved his strength and resolve were unbeatable, and the arena had collapsed to dust as a result of their power struggle. Goku was now free to rest with his new wife and begin a new chapter in his exciting journey after the powerful martial artist defeated him and the Earth was spared once more. However, this story isn't about Kid Goku. Rather, it's about his kid, whom he isn't even aware of. A bright yellow beanie rested on top of an older Suno who was greeting her fellow villagers with a giant man holding large lumbers of wood by her side. The man, who looked a lot like the famous Frankenstein's monster, was actually the android Ader, a close friend of both Suno and Goku. The snow crunched beneath sturdy boots, and a sigh escaped from slightly parted lips as a glove-covered hand reached up to push back a very familiar strand of crimson-colored hair. Wiping her forehead from the laborious task of shoveling a route, the single mother paused to push her snow shovel down. "Ader, you haven't seen Naruto, have you?" she asked, turning to face the joyful android. "I think he went hunting again," Ader remarked, pausing to consider the situation while moving the wood in his arms. Suno simply said, "That boy is just like his father," as she looked up into the sky and couldn't help but shake her head with a smile of fondness and laughter. With Naruto, a small boy was crouching on a tree with his golden monkey tail swaying idly in the wind, miles and miles away from the icy region of Jingle Village, where the greenery ruled the huge land. His blue eyes were narrowed as he prepared to leap on his unwary prey. It appeared to be a peculiar combination of his father's hair and that of his uncle Minato, who passed away years before Naruto was born, as a hand reached up to scratch at his blonde hair spikes. The region shook from the enormous footfall of some massive beasts, and many of the smaller animals ran or found a small, enclosed place to hide. However, what did the son of Goku do? The youngster had thrown away his winter clothes because he didn't need it, especially with his prey so close. Naturally, he charged directly at the danger. With a huge smile on his face, Naruto approached the startled dinosaur. Its enormous, razor-sharp jaws opened wide as it tried to devour the monkey-tailed boy in a single bite, but Naruto displayed strange, unnatural speed and agility for a child his age. As he avoided its powerful jaws, the enormous beast snapped at the air, leaving it valuable for the young warrior to leap high and land hard on the dinosaur's neck, instantly killing it. The titanic reptile collapsed to the grassy ground below, and Naruto grinned before he reached out and effortlessly hefted the monstrous-sized creature over his head with one hand. I hope Mama and the villagers are happy with my catch. Just the thought of all this meat cooked up has got me hungry. Naruto muttered to himself as he began to steadily float and then even soar through the sky, further defying the laws of gravity. Anybody who saw the monkey-tailed boy speeding past a couple of clouds thought he was a plane or a jet and continued with their day, but those on the colder side of the continent knew better. With his future meal in mind, Naruto tripled his speed, and many people in Jingle Village gathered to greet him home and celebrate his biggest catch of the day. The sight of Suno approaching with Ater caused Naruto's whiskered cheeks, which were now pink and rosy from the cold, to pull back into a huge smile. The young man shrugged the dinosaur's carcass off his shoulder, causing the nearby villagers to jump from the impact. He then rushed towards his mother, jumping into her arms and giving her a huge hug, his tail briefly encircling her waist before the monkey boy leaped down and took Suno's hand as he led her towards his catch, saying, I got another big one for us. Good job, kiddo, this will keep everyone fed for months. Suno said, grinning and placing a gloved hand on Naruto's head while rustling his blonde, spiky hair. As the two began dragging the dinosaur to the butcher's, Naruto followed Ater and told the enormous android about his trip. He said proudly, scratching at his whiskered cheek. So much like his father, Suno thought to herself as she watched with another loving gaze and sighed. On a brand new day, the sun shone, the sky was clear, and everyone in Jingle Village was cheerful. Well, most of them. Young Naruto, however, was sitting high on a mountaintop with his arms crossed and his eyes closed. He appeared to be focused, looking for something, but he had no idea what it was. No, the 5-year-old was left perplexed as he opened his eyes to gaze up at the sky. The monkey-tailed boy sat on the mountaintop because he was trying to learn how to sense the ki he felt and pinpoint its exact location so he could go investigate the disturbance. Naruto was so focused on his goal that he didn't even wish his mother a good morning or stay for breakfast. He knows he felt something, a power that may be the strongest to have come to this planet so far, but it was also very curious. A battle undoubtedly took place from the enormous craters and scorch marks that scarred the earth, but the real evidence was a man with long spiky hair and a massive hole in his chest. Naruto felt it then, putting aside his ridiculous hunger for the fight. There was a massive spike in his ki, no, multiple spikes. Without haste, he shot from his spot like a rocket, breaking the sound barrier in seconds as he focused on the power, but it seemed he was too late. Slowly approaching the long-haired man, Naruto stopped and gasped when he saw the brown monkey tail around his waist. As he got closer, he knelt in front of the stranger, who was thought to be dead, and reached out with his hand, pausing when he felt his ki, saying, "He's alive!" When Naruto heard the stranger's feeble but dying voice, he almost leaped back and moved to stand next to the stranger's face. His sole open eye looked at Naruto and then down at his own golden monkey tail, expanding his non-swollen eye as he stammered, "Why, you're a scion?" Without even thinking or needing to be asked, Naruto carefully picked up the dying man and focused his ki into the man's larger body while steadily floating the two into the air. "A scion? Is that some kind of food?" he asked with a tilt of his head, frowning as he saw the mysterious stranger's eye gradually begin to close and his breathing become shallower. Naruto bit his lip as he looked around frantically, unsure of what to do. At that moment, Naruto sensed another brief but abrupt spike in ki. With no other choice, he hurried in the direction of the power burst and discovered a land full of tall, powerful trees and a large, well-built house in the middle that appeared to be fit for royalty. Naruto landed as gently as he could, setting the bleeding stranger on the ground before turning and yelling, "Hello? Is anyone there? I need some help." Naruto was surprised to see an older girl with shoulder-length blonde hair pulled up in a high ponytail. Her brown eyes were the most captivating Naruto had ever seen. She looked at Naruto first, then at the stranger who was unconscious on the ground, before turning on her heel and hurried back inside while exclaiming, "Grandpa!" A gentle, elderly voice asked out, "What is it, Tsunade?" as it followed the girl outside and gasped in mild amazement at what she saw. "Oh dear!" Naruto and the dying scion were swiftly approached by a man with long gray hair, tan skin, and dark eyes. The man looked at the monkey-tailed man before telling the child, "Bring him inside, it might not be too late to save his life." After following the new acquaintance into his house and giving the girl Tsunade a quick glance, Naruto followed the girl's grandfather into a room that was stocked with medical equipment. "Place him on the table for me, son." Naruto did as he was told, setting the nearly lifeless scion down on the table before taking a step back and crossing his arms to observe Tsunade swiftly make her way around the room, gathering everything her grandfather required without even asking her. "Do you need me to help, mister?" After giving Naruto a friendly assurance that, "Hashirama, and there's no need, I'll take care of everything here," Hashirama turned to his granddaughter and said, "Tsunade, why don't you take the young man outside? This may take a while. Follow me," Tsunade said softly as she led the golden monkey-tailed boy out of her enormous house. Naruto was more than happy to follow the older girl, pausing for a moment to look over his shoulder before following her to her favorite place to sit and reflect, a big tree full of enormous, juicy red apples. While Naruto jumped into the tree and began eating as many apples as he could, Tsunade found a comfortable spot to sit on a soft patch of grass. He almost startled Tsunade by hanging upside down by his tail and giving the older girl the other apple in his hand. Tsunade raised one eyebrow, almost perplexed at the monkey boy's lack of nerve to begin eating their apples while offering her one as if it were his to give away. But instead of becoming angry or offended, Tsunade accepted the apple, nodding her head in gratitude as she took a bite out of the fruit. Setting aside a partially consumed apple, Naruto asked, "Do you think that man is gonna be okay?" as he turned to face the house. "I don't know, most normal people don't survive that long with a massive hole in their chest," Tsunade said quietly, shrugging. Uncertain of how to interpret such response, Naruto uttered the words, returning to his apple eating. "But Gramps is the strongest healer and fighter in the world. He's even better than the great mutant Rashi," Tsunade said, hoping to comfort Naruto after observing how distressed he appeared at her response. With a shake of his head, Naruto tossed aside his apple core and walked toward the elder female, asking, "Eh? Who's that? Is he strong?" Tsunade groaned as she described Rashi to Naruto. "Only one of the best martial artists of all time, second to my grandpa of course. From what I heard they used to be rivals," rolling her brown eyes at what she believed should be common information. "Rivals, huh? Is this Rashi guy alive?" Naruto asked Tsunade, curious as to whether or not such a powerful martial artist was in the area. Tsunade shrugged and replied, "I think so, my grandpa sends him letters sometimes." Observing that Naruto appeared satisfied to simply sit there, Tsunade told the monkey-tailed child, "You might as well head home and come back tomorrow. I don't think you'll be seeing much change." The young martial artist looked over his shoulder and waved goodbye as he exclaimed, "It was nice meeting you, Tsunade." Naruto muttered, I hope he gets better quickly. Largely to himself, but also aloud. He then turned and began to run in the direction the blonde ponytail girl thought was his house. Weird kid, the granddaughter of Hashirama muttered to herself as she shook her head and smiled slightly. As he looked out his window, Naruto noticed the dim outline of a crescent moon in the dark, cold sky. The young boy couldn't help but sigh and turn away, focusing on his mother who was approaching him with a tray of food that could feed 5 grown men. Suno joyfully replied, "Here you go, sweetheart," setting a tiny feast in front of the scion kid before taking her own seat at the table. Naruto murmured haltingly, "Thanks, Mama," as he stared at the meal with a preoccupied expression rather than immediately attacking his plate. Suno asked worriedly, "Everything all right, honey? You're not even touching your food," as she was aware of the telltale indicators that her toddler was disturbed. "I guess I'm not that hungry." Naruto shrugged, leaning his arms on the table while he couldn't stop wondering about the man he had discovered the day before and the identity of this Master Rashi. "Not hungry?" Suno said worriedly, hurrying to her son's side to touch his forehead. "Are you feeling okay? Do you have a fever?" she asked. "It's nothing like that, Mama. It's just, do you know anyone by the name Mutant Rashi?" Naruto explained, smiling and shaking his head gently as he took his mother's hand away. When his mother nodded and smiled and replied, "I do, he's your father's teacher," Naruto felt a great sense of relief and delight. With his hands on the table and his eyes wide, the golden monkey-tailed youngster leaned forward in enthusiasm and asked, "He trained my dad? From what I heard, he's quite the skilled martial artist but also a deadly pervert," Suno said, nodding and placing a hand on her chin as she began to recall what she could about the elderly martial arts master. "I see," Naruto murmured, still seeking Master Rashi although not fully understanding what a pervert was. "I know that look, you're planning to go look for him, aren't you?" Suno moaned as she noticed her son's delighted smile. "Hee hee, you know me too well," Naruto said cheekily to his mother while rubbing his spiky blonde hair. There was also a self-serving desire to send Naruto in search of Goku's teacher. She hoped the old master would have a way of introducing a son to his father. Suno told her son, "If I remember correctly from what your father told me a long time ago, I think he lives near the Southeast Islands, close to Lacko Village." Naruto grinned eagerly and said, "Lacko Village, huh? I guess I'll start searching there," his hunger returning with a fury as he made his way to his pile of food. Suno asked, "Just be careful, honey," as she got ready to eat her own small supper. "There's no need to worry, Mama. I'm the strongest after all," Naruto said, waving off his mother with a relaxed smile while holding a huge drumstick that appeared to be nearly as big as his arm. With a sigh, Suno remarked, "I know you are, but I still can't help but worry about you, my little man," shaking her head. "I'll be safe, I promise," Naruto said more solemnly so his mother wouldn't be concerned. The following day, recalling what Tsunade had mentioned yesterday regarding her grandfather writing letters to the elderly turtle hermit, Naruto was racing through the sky at speeds that seemed unthinkable. His familiar silver-white aura enveloped his entire diminutive form as he sped past numerous flying creatures of all sizes and through clouds. After landing gently on the grassy ground below, the monkey-tailed boy began searching for the grandfather and granddaughter pair. When he was unable to sense their ki anywhere, he frowned in confusion and decided that they wouldn't mind if he went inside to check on the man he had found yesterday. Naruto entered the Senju household and used his senses to locate the room containing the long, spiky-haired stranger, who was motionless but breathing and had blood-stained bandages wrapped around his chest. Whatever Hashirama did manage to do, it was successful. Naruto calmly swished his golden monkey tail to the left and right as he said, "I'm glad to see you're okay," to the unconscious scion. Kakarot. Naruto cocked his head, watching as the enigmatic stranger muttered a name while he slept. With her hands on her hips and her eyebrows arched, Tsunade exclaimed, "What are you doing here?" She resisted the want to pick up the monkey-tailed boy by the rumple of his shirt and toss him outside. Naruto turned to the slightly irritated blonde and said simply, "Seeing if he's still alive." As she approached the comatose scion, Tsunade rolled her eyes and took her hands off her hips. "You know, it's rude to enter someone's home when they're not there, right?" she said. "Is it?" Naruto inquired, his smile making it difficult for Tsunade to determine whether he was kidding. Tsunade shook her head and said, "You're hopeless." Yet if you looked closely, you could see that she was wearing a small smile. "I'm glad he's going to be okay," Naruto stated solemnly while gazing at the prone form of the sleeping scion. "How can you tell? He still might not make it through tonight," Tsunade said, raising an eyebrow as she glanced at the bandaged alien and then back at Naruto. Naruto's straightforward yet honest response, "I just have a feelin', you know," nearly convinced Tsunade to believe what her fellow blonde was saying. As she escorted Naruto from the room, Tsunade asked, "So you just came to check up on him?" As Naruto plucked at his spiky hair, his smile became even more sheepish. "Well, I also wanted to see your grandpa. Is he here?" he asked. Tsunade led Naruto to her grandfather, who was sitting quietly, or rather, meditating, beneath a tall, powerful oak tree with blossoming flowers around his serene body. "Yeah, the old-timer is just playing in his garden. Follow me," she said. "It's nice to see you again, my monkey-tailed friend," Naruto waved and said. "Yo, how's it going, old-timer?" His ear twitched as he heard Tsunade chuckle softly into her hand. Taking no offense at Naruto's welcome, Hashirama replied, "I didn't think we'd be seeing you so soon," with one of his own. Naruto honestly said, "Well, I wish I could say this was just a friendly visit," while rubbing his neck sheepishly. The golden monkey-tailed youngster asked. "I was hoping you could tell me where Master Roshi is," unexpectedly startling both Tsunade and Hashirama. As he wiped his chin and covered his smile, the elderly man thought, "Why are you looking for my old rival? If you don't mind me asking," he said. Naruto sounded a little dejected as he continued, "I don't really know what to expect, but I want to meet the man who trained my father. It won't be much, but I think if I train with Master Roshi, it might just bring me closer to my dad." Turning away from Hashirama and Tsunade to gaze up at the sky and sigh as he attempted to imagine what his father looked like. Tsunade gazed at Naruto in astonishment, not anticipating the typically cheerful, bright-eyed boy to be so depressed, yet in a sense, Tsunade could relate because of her own predicament with her parents. "I see," Hashirama said quietly, nodding his head in agreement that Naruto's wish to locate his old friend was logical. "If you're so persistent, then perhaps you wouldn't mind delivering something to my old friend, would you?" Hashirama asked. "Not at all, old-timer," Naruto replied, grinning and saluting. Hashirama chuckled and found himself admiring the monkey-tailed child. "Ha ha 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 ha! Cheeky brat," he said, telling the elderly martial artist and healer. "I know Master Roshi lives near Lako village, but I'm not exactly sure where he is." Naruto trailed Hashirama and Tsunade into their house. Hashirama gave Naruto a few letters and a thin, wrapped package, saying, "That's okay, my boy. He is quite difficult to find. He lives in a small house on an island in the middle of the ocean. You'll know it once you spot it." Naruto reassured Hashirama. Small house on an island, got it. After stating to himself what he was supposed to search for a few times, Hashirama instructed the golden monkey-tailed lad. "Just tell Rashi I sent you," knowing that this would increase the youngster's chances of receiving training from his former competitor. As he bent his head, Naruto said, "Thank you, Mr. Hashirama," and Hashirama returned the gesture. "No problem, son. I'd better get going. I'll be back later," Naruto said, wishing the girl with the long pigtails a kind farewell. "Bye, Tsunade," he said. Watching Naruto rise into the sky and then dart across the skyline like a shooting star, Tsunade waved back. Naruto quickly located Lako village, hovering over the little island and grinning as he watched the locals go about their daily lives. The monkey-tailed lad then focused on the vast blue that surrounded the tiny tropical island. When Naruto's ki touched Rashi's, it ignited a flare inside the monkey-tailed boy's mind and revealed the location of the old turtle hermit's home. Naruto wasted no time flying across the ocean, the waves parting from his velocity. Following the ki he could now sense, Naruto eventually found himself upon an even small island, home to a decent-sized house and a couple of palm trees. He crossed his arms and closed his eyes as he spread out his ki, effectively using his energy to find Master Rashi in a manner similar to echolocation. As he landed softly on the soft sand below, Naruto thought, "Kame House, this is definitely the place." After enjoying the island's tranquility for a short while, he approached the screen door and knocked 3 times before yelling, "Excuse me, I'm looking for a Master Rashi?" "Hello?" "Hold your horses, I'm coming," an elderly voice yelled. The screen door opened, and a man wearing a red and white t-shirt with flowers whimsically embroidered on it emerged. Master Rashi himself stood in front of Naruto, his bald head shining in the sunlight, his signature cane in one hand. The martial artist stroked his beard with his free hand and asked, "Who might you be?" "I have some letters here for you from Mr. Hashirama," Naruto said, bowing before the elderly turtle hermit and pressing a closed fist against an open palm. "My name is Son Naruto, and I have come in search of my father's master," he said. With his trademark eyeglasses almost falling off his face and his beard concealing his broad smile, Rashi said, "Wait, did you say your last name was Son? Hee hee hee. Goku, you're just like your former master? So you're the child of Son Goku, eh? Well, your hair is different, but the smile and tail? That outstanding strength? Hey, you're his son all right," Master Rashi said after examining Naruto's features and learning a little bit about his strength. He thanked Naruto for bringing him his letters and the package his oldest friend had sent, which he could only assume was a new dirty magazine. There was a hint of arrogance in Naruto's tone as he acknowledged his strength. Hee hee, well, not to brag, but I am the strongest after all, and I guess it makes sense my dad would also be pretty strong as well," he added confidently. As he rubbed his beard, Rashi remarked, "The strongest, you say? That is a very bold claim," beginning to question Naruto's actual strength and whether he was the secret weapon they needed to counter the Saiyan menace. Naruto reassured the martial arts expert. "It's the truth." The monkey-tailed lad was more than willing to comply with Master Rashi's request, but he was concerned that the elderly master wouldn't be able to keep up. You wouldn't mind if I test out your strength for myself? You sure you'll be okay?" Naruto inquired, fearing that if he utilized his strength excessively, he may harm the elderly guys. Rashi smiled and dismissed Naruto's worries as he moved away from his house and toward the coast. "I think I'll manage," he murmured. Naruto mumbled, "If you say so," as he watched the man in the turtle shell walk slowly to his place. He threw Rashi a sardonic look and felt a drop of perspiration fall down his cheek. "All right, boyo, I'm ready, come at me," Rashi said as Naruto charged with his arm and fist drawn back for a heavy haymaker. Strong enough to send the old man flying without seriously hurting him, that was what Naruto was expecting. However, what the young man didn't anticipate was that Rashi would duck under Naruto's punch, his sandals swiping the sand as he maneuvered so he was standing with his back to the stunned scion. Rashi grinned cheekily beneath his beard and told Naruto, "Remember to take it easy on me, I am old after all." The old master wasn't necessarily faster than Naruto, but he didn't seem to waste any of his movements, planning ahead and dodging with his own basic instincts, an instinct that could only be gained through years of experience and wisdom, and he was too busy underestimating Rashi to be prepared for a small ki blast to be thrown into his face, temporarily blinding the half-breed and leaving his tail open to be snatched and held in a tight grip. "Heh!" Naruto rushed back with newly discovered excitement, throwing a barrage of punches and kicks that the martial artist easily dodged with his hands behind his back. Naruto felt dizzy, unsteady, and exhausted all at once. He rubbed his face and lazily glanced over his shoulder before narrowing his eyes as he realized Rashi was taking advantage of a vulnerability he was unaware of. Naruto hardly had time to stammer, "Wadash!" before a chuckling Rashi gave him a smack to the skull. Rashi laughed as he released Naruto's tail and observed the half-breed scion shake his head, his strength gradually returning, although his eyes were cautious yet curious. "Got ya, my boy," Rashi said. Naruto gripped his tail securely around his waist and walked towards Rashi with his arms crossed, complaining, "Tch, sneaky old man," as the elderly master appeared to be pondering in private. Naruto's remark, "Perhaps, but nonetheless, you are strong, truly. Your strength easily outshines your father when he was this age, but you lack concentration, technique, and a proper way to harness your power," snapped Rashi out of his reverie. The young man bowed deeply, sounding incredibly humble as he asked, no begged, "Please, master, teach me. I wish to be a better warrior and to surpass my father," which was exactly what Rashi was expecting from him. He was strong in power, yes, but still very young, possibly too young to understand the wisdom of what the old turtle hermit was trying to say and might lash out as a result. Unprepared for the unexpected embrace, Rashi declared proudly, "Normally I won't take just anybody as my student, but since you are the son of my greatest pupil and have gained the favor of one of my oldest friends, I will train you in the turtle hermit way." Before releasing the old master to start his training, Naruto repeatedly said, "Thank you, thank you. Can we start training now?" As he explained, "Not today, my boy. Given how strong you are, I have to make some plans to adjust to your level, but we'll start right away tomorrow. Go home and rest. One of the rules of the turtle hermit way is to rest well after all." Rashi shook his head and adjusted his sunglasses. "Hey, he really is like Goku," he thought to himself. The old master shouted, "I'll see you tomorrow, master," and Naruto saluted before slowly drifting into the sky and said, "Right, master." While waving the flying child off, Rashi muttered to himself, "See you tomorrow, my new pupil." He also thought to himself, "I'd better call Bulma and let her know of this new development. That boy will definitely help us defeat the Scions." The long-haired stranger was now awake, and Naruto wasted no time in taking off toward Hashirama's house. The Scion Kid was nearly beaming as he flew through the sky, planning to return home, when he felt a familiar weak spike of energy. Naruto ran into the large house, forgetting his manners in his excitement. He was more than familiar with the path leading to the mysterious stranger's temporary room, and he came expecting a lot. However, Tsunade tried to slam the scowling stranger's head in, but was only partially restrained by a nervously laughing Hashirama. Hashirama tried to calm his enraged grandchildren by saying, "Calm down, Tsunade, he didn't mean any harm." But like his cherished wife, may she rest in peace, she was obstinate and unyielding. "This bastard called me a serving wench and demanded I bring him food," Tsunade snarled, her honey-brown eyes narrowed into slits as she gazed daggers at the smirking older scion. The long spiky-haired man squirmed as he tried to stand up and asked, "TCH, attempting to harm a man while he's injured, have you no honor, girl?" Tsunade yelled, "I'll show you honor!" as she nearly escaped her grandfather's firm hold. Everyone in the room turned to look at the youthful, joyful scion as Naruto exclaimed, "I knew you were awake!" His tail was unwrapping from around his waist in enthusiasm. The wounded man whispered, You were the one who saved me," his gaze drawn to the boy's golden monkey tail, which was not too different from his own. "So you really are a scion?" he asked. "I don't know what a scion is," Naruto said sheepishly, laughing and grinning as he scratched the back of his head. His father's expression was quite similar. As he shifted into a more comfortable position, the stranger growled and said, "It's what you are, boy, your heritage." "My heritage?" Naruto asked again, his expression displaying bewilderment. "You don't have the typical look for a scion, but given you're a half-breed, I'm not surprised," the man said, nodding to the scion adolescent. "What are scions?" Naruto tilted his head and raised an inquisitive eyebrow. The mysterious stranger explained, his tone growing more solemn toward the end. "The scions were once a mighty race of star-traveling conquerors, the strongest and most ruthless warriors to ever grace the universe with a rising kingdom that could only be rivaled by the Cold Empire. At least, we were." He could still recall where he was on the day it happened, a nameless planet with the Prince Vegeta IV, the Scion Elite Nappa, and two low-class scions like himself, though those two didn't last long. Tsunade was also inquisitive, but she was also quite tired of the man, believing him to be nothing more than trouble. Naruto inquired, "What happened to them?" in an attempt to find out what had happened to his people. "What I and my two fellow scions were told at the time was that our planet Vegeta was hit by an asteroid, destroying our home and nearly wiping out our entire race for good," Raditz said somberly to his fellow scion. His thoughts turned to his parents, wondering if they were together and what they were doing in their last moments. Did they consider him as death drew near? Did Kakarot cross their minds? The wounded scion was accused by Tsunade, who glared and crossed her arms. "If that's the case, then why did you come to this planet? To conquer and kill every last person here?" she said. "Silence, foolish girl. I came here on my own accord, not in the name of taking over your miserable planet," the wounded warrior said, gazing at Tsunade and even admiring her bravery. Naruto asked, grabbing the long-haired scion's attention once more. "Why did you come to Earth?" The enigmatic scion went on. "He was sent away from our planet before it blew up. My mother sent his quadrants to my scouter in a secret message, a message I didn't hear until a year ago," Naruto said, trying not to interrupt the man, remembering in silence that was the name he was muttering in his sleep. Given the form we found you in, your brother wasn't pleased to see you, was he? Hashirama asked, his arms crossed and his gaze focused. After making eye contact and maintaining a tense quiet, the enigmatic stranger angrily responded. No, no, he wasn't. His companion Scion turned aside when Naruto asked. Why? His eyes were glassy from the memory of the fight that almost killed him. He initially declined to respond, his silence more than expressing his feelings and the way he and his younger brother parted ways. It doesn't matter, he won, I lost. Naruto, his curiosity overtaking him, inquired. Did you guys fight? We did. Why? Was such a straightforward question, yet the enigmatic stranger felt a lot of pressure to give an honest response. Because he refused to listen to me. Because I was too prideful to see he wasn't the scion I thought he would be. Because I was weak, he said, his brows narrowing and his fist clenched tight as though acknowledging his own weakness was a blow to his pride as a brother and a warrior. His voice nearly sounded like a whisper near the end. I'm sorry you guys had a fight, but maybe when you see each other again, you can say sorry and make up, and then maybe you can be brothers again. Naruto remarked with a gentle voice and a bright, hopeful smile that belied his youth. The visitor remained turned away from Naruto, pondering what the boy had said and wondering whether he and Kakarot might truly be a family. Come along, Naruto, he needs his rest, Hashirama said as he began to lead his granddaughter and the scion child out of the room after observing that the elder scion wasn't in the mood to converse. I hope you feel better soon, mister, Naruto said candidly as he cast one final glance over his shoulder and smiled sadly, out of sight of the man. Raditz, my name is Raditz, said his fellow scion before Naruto could completely exit the room. Away from the Senju residence, Tsunade, still a little irritated by the impolite scion's remarks, looked at her fellow blonde with a raised eyebrow and asked, What's with the good mood? Naruto was in a good mood, his arms folded behind the back of his head as he flashed his cheerful grin for Hashirama and Tsunade to see. Naruto's straightforward response, I finally know his name, caused the elder girl to roll her eyes. Tsunade smirked at the smiling scion youngster and crossed her arms, saying, Doesn't take much to make you happy, huh? Naruto said. Hee hee, turning to face the elderly guy. Hey, Mr. Hashirama, would you mind if I stayed the night? Not wishing to cause the boy's family any concern, Hashirama asked. I suppose that wouldn't be a problem, but wouldn't your family be worried? Nah, they know I can take care of myself. Besides, I really want to speak more with Raditz after my training with Master Roshi, Naruto said, dismissing the old-timer's concern. Well, if they don't mind, then you can stay. Tsunade can show you your room, Hashirama stated, nodding in agreement. With an expression of gratitude, Naruto said, Thank you, Mr. Hashirama. Hashirama excused himself as he went to retire in his bed, telling the two, It is quite all right, my boy. Now if you will excuse me, I must rest. Healing Raditz took a lot out of these old bones. Tsunade said to Hashirama, I'll bring you your supper soon, Grandpa, grinning slightly as the man combed her hair. Thank you, Tsuna. As Tsunade blushed at Naruto's low laugh, she whispered in shame, Grandpa. After leaving the two golden-haired kids to sit outside while Hashirama shuffled into his house, Naruto stood up with his hand on his stomach and said, I'm starting to get hungry. Did you want to go hunting with me, Tsunade? As he watched the sun set beautifully behind the twin mountains. I guess I can. The girl with the ponytail shrugged in response. Naruto asked, a little delighted at the prospect of having fun with someone his own age, something he's never been able to do before. Did you want to make it a game? Tsunade asked with a raised eyebrow. A game? Naruto explained simply. Yeah, whoever hunts the biggest animal wins, because he believed it would be entertaining. When Tsunade said, That sounds dumb, the monkey boy began to pout and wiggle his tail in an attempt to come up with a strategy to get Tsunade to reconsider. Yeah, I understand. I mean, I wouldn't want to play if I knew I was going to lose, Naruto said, turning his head aside to hide his sly smile from Tsunade as the plan took root. Tsunade put both hands on her hips and asked, Hang on a second, who said I would lose? She didn't like what the monkey-tailed lad was implying as he tickled her pride. What are you getting at, Shorty? She asked. Naruto shrugged and gave the older female a smug smile that he knew would arouse her competitive side. We can make it more interesting if you want, he said. Tsunade inquired. So you want to make a bet, huh? All right, fine. What do I get when I win? She was curious about what Naruto would give and whether he would honor his promise if he lost. Whatever you want, but when I win, I want you to teach me a cool technique, Naruto said, extending his hand for Tsunade to shake. He was sure he would win. Deal, Tsunade said loudly, accepting the younger boy's proposition and shaking Naruto's hand without hesitation. Naruto jumped to stand by the taller female and shouted, On the count of 3, grinning as he assumed a running position that Tsunade imitated. 1. The blonde-haired scion began the countdown, noticing Tsunade grinning as he did so. 2. Tsunade proceeded with the countdown, beginning to get eager for the first enjoyable moment she had experienced in a long time. When Tsunade and Naruto simultaneously exclaimed, 3/3, the Scion Kid was softly forced back, giving Tsunade an advantage. Naruto said, Hey! That's cheating! But he never stopped grinning. He pursued Tsunade until he was just a hair's breadth behind her, grinning cheekily as he said, Get ready to lose, Tsuna! You're so dead! Was the boy's pet nickname for her, and Tsunade's cheeks flushed with both embarrassment and wrath. Hee hee! Naruto broke away from Tsunade, heading off on his own to hunt and avoid the enraged girl. He hunted down a herd of deer using his years of practice, but Naruto felt that they weren't large enough. Nevertheless, he kept searching and stopped when he discovered a piece of carcass. What was left of a Tyrannosaurus rex was still somewhat fresh, and its blood was accumulating on the ground. Naruto sniffed the air while crossing his arms and humming to himself. Whatever killed this mighty dinosaur was close and it was still hungry. The little scion didn't have to wait long for a roaring hot flame to emerge from the darkness, illuminating the area sufficiently for Naruto to see nothing but red scales, giant yellow eyes, and rows of sharp teeth. Naruto's ear twitched as he heard a deep rumbling growl from the shroud of darkness. He narrowed his eyes as he extended his senses. A typical youngster would be paralyzed with terror at the sight of a fiery death, but Naruto simply grinned and his eyes glinted mischievously as the dragon in all its splendor roared down fiercely at him, spreading its enormous bat-like wings wide. Unfazed by the prospect of burning, Naruto leaped into the flames and then appeared near the dragon's muzzle with his fist drew back. He struck the drake hard enough to send its head slamming to the side with a loud snap, its wings trying to spread wide in defiance but steadily closing and the giant creature falling in a heap. Naruto patted the enormous dragon and silently thanked the once powerful drake for the meal it was about to provide. Closing his eyes and channeling his ki, Naruto raised the beast above his head and began to fly away from the ashy area in search of Tsunade. Alongside Tsunade, The granddaughter of the legendary warrior and healer Hashirama moved swiftly but silently as she pursued her own prey. Although she was not as formidable as Naruto in terms of pure ki, the high ponytail girl still possessed a respectable amount of power and the focus and self-control required to use her ki efficiently. The honey-brown-eyed girl moved among the trees, pausing when she sensed the creature's ki waning. Curious, Tsunade went to where she felt the disturbance and was shocked to see an injured doe, barely able to stand on its injured leg, but doing so anyway to protect its baby from a hungry wolf pack that was slowly circling the fright pair. Tsunade's near-perfect ki control allowed her to have a near-perfect mental map of the area and even sense Naruto miles away. The girl acted without thinking, landing with a yell as she punched the ground, shattering it into uneven pieces of rubble, frightening the pack of wolves and sending them running away with their legs tucked between their legs. Tsunade dusted her hands with huff and frowned as she turned to face the mother and child, but she broke her frown when she saw that the poor injured creature was afraid of her. Tsunade could feel the fear and the need for the doe to protect her child even if it meant her life had to end. After waiting a moment with her hand extended for the injured mother to smell, Tsunade looked at her and slowly lay down, being careful not to disturb her injured leg. "It's okay," she whispered softly as she approached slowly with one hand up. The girl hoped the doe would realize she wasn't a threat and that all she wanted to do was help. Tsunade channeled her ki into an ancient technique passed down through her family for generations, taught to her by her grandfather. The fawn nuzzled into its mother before hesitantly walking to Tsunade, mimicking what its mother did and then nuzzling its own head into the girl's palm. The doe's wound began to heal quickly, and in a matter of seconds, it was as if there had never been a wound in the first place. The doe thanked Tsunade by nuzzling her cheek before getting up on trembling legs, quickly regained her balance, and then left with her fawn. Some may argue that it was unimportant, and that all she did was postpone the pack of wolves for another day, but Tsunade saw it that way. It was far more personal than that. She watched them leave with a sorrowful grin, glad she had saved a life. Dispelling the melancholy thoughts, Tsunade went on her quest without noticing Naruto smiling in the skies, holding a dead dragon. The Scion boy then flew back to the house, leaving the girl to hunt at her own pace. Tsunade wandered through the forest for a while before coming upon a section with tall trees and a foreboding atmosphere. She entered a clearing and pretended not to notice the enormous serpent watching her from a nearby tree. The girl with the blonde ponytail grinned as the snake lunged at her, its mouth wide, intending to devour her whole in a single bite. The enormous serpent didn't notice Tsunade's sudden appearance, as she appeared above it with her foot raised high in the air, then came down with a powerful stomp, crushing the snake's head in a single blow. Tsunade grinned in admiration at her kill, lifting the titanic boa over her head and then flew home. The two sat next to one another as the meat cooked on a spike, and much later, over a roaring fire, Tsunade sat complaining that Naruto's dragon was larger than her snake. She reluctantly acknowledged that she had lost the bet. When Tsunade realized that the short kid had his eyes closed and appeared to be concentrating on his ki in a way that she couldn't even explain, she looked at him and raised a bow. Curious, she inquired, "What are you doing?" Naruto opened one eye and said, "I'm working on a technique I made myself." His customary benevolence and mischievousness giving way to a kind but solemn look. "That's pretty incredible. Not many people can create their own techniques, especially at your age. What kind of technique is it?" Tsunade commented, clearly impressed and giving the scion the credit he earned. Naruto exclaimed, "Give me your hand and I'll show you." as he extended his hand for Tsunade to place her against. The girl scowled at the Scion boy but complied with his request. Tsunade attempted to press her palm against Naruto's but was unsuccessful. She scowled in contemplation and tried applying more force, but the outcome remained the same. Even using ki seemed futile because her hand remained in the same spot, as if no matter how hard she tried, she would never make contact with Naruto's hand. Still attempting to understand Naruto's specific technique, the elder female asked, "Is it some kind of barrier?" Naruto grinned and said, "Sorta, it's a super special move I've been working on for a while. I'm calling it Limitless." Feeling quite happy of the catchy moniker. Still attempting to overcome the invisible force holding their hands apart, Tsunade asked, "So how does it work?" It's kind of hard to explain, but I think the best way to explain it is that it's basically infinite, I guess," Naruto said, letting out a sigh and scratching the back of his head with his other hand. Tsunade tilted her head slightly and asked, "Huh? Unless I don't want it to be," Naruto said, smiling up at Tsunade as he let his technique drop and their hands touch. "I'm not really stopping you. I'm just slowing your hand so much it doesn't even look like it's moving, but you'll never reach me. This distance between us will always be infinite," he said. Tsunade praised the younger child, rolling her eyes at his joyful smile. "Hell, I thought you were just some simple monkey boy. I didn't expect you to be so creative," she said. Hee, now how did you manage to come up with something like that?" Tsunade asked, still intrigued. Naruto shrugged and remarked, "It came to me in a dream," without comment. "A dream, huh?" Tsunade rolled her eyes in response, but she took the response nevertheless. Her mind used that particular instance to remind her of their wager and the fact that she had lost. Tsunade said, "So a deal is a deal. I'll teach you something I know, but I doubt it'll be as impressive as that limitless technique," before bringing up the question, "What do you want me to teach you?" to the Scion. Naruto implored the elder lady to teach him the art of healing, saying, "I want to be able to heal people and myself like you do. Teach me that cool healing thing you did." With a faint flush, Tsunade explained, "Hang on there. That's a very important and ancient healing technique of the Senjus. I can't just teach it to you." She recalled that the only other way someone could learn from her family was to marry her family, which was an outdated and foolish custom that she thought about with shame. With his hands clasped over his head and his monkey tail gently moving from side to side, Naruto pleaded, "Please, Tsunade-sensei." Tsunade turned to the monkey boy and prodded his chest, saying, "If I'm going to teach you, you have to listen to every word and you can't slack off. Healing might not be as destructive or crazy like other moves, but it's just as important, you got that?" I can't believe I'm doing this," she muttered, dragging a hand down her face with a sigh. To the elder girl's delight, Naruto stood up straight and saluted, saying, "Yes, ma'am." "Good, I'll go bring Grandpa something to eat. I won't be long," Tsunade said, chopping off pieces of pork and arranging them on a dish with a good amount of rice and vegetables. Naruto resumed eating his roasted dragon leg after saying, "Okay, see you soon," pausing for a moment to raise his head and utter the words, "I can sense you, you know." The older Scion proceeded to sit next to the small boy, blinking in astonishment when the child offered him the other dragon leg. It was then that Raditz realized he hadn't eaten in days. Raditz emerged from the shadow, his chest wrapped in new bandages. Raditz nodded in appreciation and took the food that was presented to him. He and his fellow Scion ate in silence, or rather, in brief silence, while Naruto said, "I'm glad to see you're feeling better. After taking a hard bite to the dragon leg, Raditz asked. You are? Naruto cheerfully replied. Yeah, and now I'll be able to learn more about you and the science. With his tail swaying placidly. With a disturbed expression, Raditz gazed into the fire, his chest hurting from guilt rather than his wound. Boy, you wouldn't be helping me if you knew who I was or what I've done, he said. Naruto remained quiet as he observed Raditz, curious about what was subtly harming his fellow scion. Raditz sneered as he began to consider his brother. Your kindness is wasted on me, TCH. Such a thing shouldn't even be possible for a scion, but for whatever reason, you and Kakarot. Naruto laid down his lunch and focused entirely on the elder scion, asking, Who's Kakarot? Is that your brother? Raditz said. Kakarot is my brother, but he's also your father. Looking at his nephew to gauge his reaction to the information. With his arms crossed and his brows furrowed in perplexity, Naruto firmly declared, My father's name is Son Goku. That is his earthling name. His true name is Kakarot, son of Bardock and Jine. Raditz growled. When Naruto recognized the man seated next to him, he said to himself, Wait, so that means Dash. Raditz acknowledged. That's right, I'm your uncle, and returned his attention to the fire. Before recalling what the elder scion had spoken to him earlier that day. So that brother you were fighting, that was my dad, Naruto whispered. I've never had an uncle before. It was, Naruto questioned, perplexed as to what his uncle could have done that would have made him hate him. But why wouldn't I help you? Just because you got into a fight with your brother? Don't brothers fight? With a rage, Raditz stood up and told his nephew. Because your father died trying to kill me with that Namekian. Do you understand now, boy? Your father is dead because of me. The guilt was almost too much for him to bear. Raditz yelled violently at the youngster. What, nothing to say? Aren't you angry at what I've done? Don't you want me to pay? In a sense, he was expressing his own humiliation and rage at his own failure as an older brother and a son. But instead of attacking the older scion or losing his temper, Naruto simply displayed sadness over what had transpired between his father and Raditz, regretting that he had failed to recognize the conflict sooner, and that he was unable to intervene to alter the course of events. You feel bad about what happened. You didn't want to hurt my dad, I can sense it, Naruto said. Raditz murmured, What would a brat like you know? Before leaving Naruto to sit alone and returning to the Senju home to recuperate and consider what his nephew had said. Are you okay? Tsunade asked, taking advantage of the silence of the lone scion to make herself known. Naruto sadly remarked. Yeah, I'm okay, but I don't think he is. Referring to his uncle. Hey, you still want me to teach you? Asked Tsunade, not enjoying the dejected expression on the normally happy monkey boy's face. When Naruto exclaimed, Yes! What do I gotta do first? His emotion skyrocketed. As Tsunade said, Alright, well, first things first, control and mastery of your ki. She laughed softly. The rest of that night was spent teaching Naruto the fundamentals by Tsunade, who was so impressed that he absorbed her lessons like a sponge. When morning arrived, Naruto bid farewell to Raditz and the Senjus, promising to return. Naruto was flying back home toward Jingle Village with a burst of silver aura, intending to visit his mother and also pick up something special. House of Kame. The martial artist Master Rashi was sitting on the beach that encircled his house on a beautiful evening. He was resting beneath the lone palm tree next to his oldest pet and companion, a sea turtle. The sun was shining over the still ocean water, and the two of them were content as the sound of an engine interrupted their tranquility, as one of Capsule Corps' smaller plane designs landed on his island. Rashi welcomed the woman into his house and offered her tea as they sat at the table. "Bulma, glad you could make it," he said. Bulma scowled when Rashi shook his head and questioned in a random guess. "So, what is it? Did Krillin and the others become crazy strong in a short amount of time or something?" "No, it's nothing like that. While they are training hard, I don't believe they will be enough to defeat the Scions," replied the elderly master with integrity. "Then what is it?" Bulma inquired, growing a little agitated as she tried to figure out what this was all about. Rashi was interrupted by a young voice yelling at him from outside. "His name is Dash. Master, I'm back." "Ah, speak of the little devil and he shall appear. Come, let's go say hello," Rashi remarked, laughing and stroking his beard in delight. He motioned for Bulma to follow. Bulma looked to the cheekily smiling master and said, "Tell me he isn't." The heir to Capsule Corp was expecting many things, but a child with blonde hair, a bright familiar grin, and a monkey tail was not one of them. "Looks like our boy Goku has been busy, eh? Ihihei." When Naruto approached the stunned Bulma, he was wearing an orange gi that covered his mother-made yellow long-sleeve shirt. His martial artist pants were the same color as his gi and were secured in place by a turquoise sash. His boots left footprints in the sand, and he held out his hand, unknowingly greeting one of his father's oldest friends. "Son Naruto, it's nice to meet you." Bulma's short-circuiting brain rebooted when she heard Naruto's name. The purple-haired woman shook her head to get the shock out of her body and gave Naruto an awkward "likewise" in return. "So what are we doing today, Master?" Rashi happily said. "You'll like this, my boy. I'll be teaching you a move that your father learned from me." The boy's enthusiasm was contagious, since it had been a long time since he had a student to instruct. "Really?" When a blue ball of ki appeared between his cupped hands, Rashi yelled out aloud, "HA!" and thrust his hands forward, sending out a clean and perfect ki wave that split the sea itself. "That's right, today is the day I teach you the Kamehameha," Rashi said as he walked over to the shore of his island, stabbing his brown cane into the sand and cupping his hands, slowly beginning to chant the name of his most potent technique. Rashi looked to his new student and said, "Not bad, eh?" with a smile that was obvious through his beard. He cancelled the strength behind his technique and allowed the sea to return to calm. Naruto muttered, "That was so cool," with stars in his eyes. Naruto moved to where Rashi had been standing and cupped his hands by his side. "Now it's your turn. I want you to do what I did. Just follow my movements and believe in yourself," said the young scion, nodding as he listened to his master's advice. Bulma, who was a touch homesick at the sight of Naruto, questioned, "Do you think he can do it on his first try?" With complete confidence in Naruto's abilities, Rashi nodded. "If this boy is anything like his father, then I know he will," Rashi said. "Ka!" Naruto was channeling ki between his palms with his eyes closed, and his breathing quietly in and out. "Me!" Rashi watched with anticipation as Naruto's charged ki began to tinge the island blue. Bulma, an ordinary human without access to ki, was astounded and gaped in awe as the scion child resumed his chant. "Ha!" while water and sand swirled about him in a fierce dance. "Me!" For a brief moment, it appeared to Rashi's stunned eyes that Goku's spirit was by Naruto's side, his hands cupped next to his son to help him focus his energy. Rashi blinked, and he realized that what he thought was Goku's spirit was gone, leaving only his son, the hope of the world until Goku made his much-needed return. Blurring blue and ferocious, Naruto slammed his eyes wide. H-A-A-A! The prodigious youngster roared, releasing his ki wave with a thrust of his hands. Poor Bulma was left dumbfounded as she stared slack-jawed, unable to understand what the smiling child had done. Even if his father had been able to perform similar feats when she was younger, it would still leave her perplexed every time. The sea was unable to withstand the power of Naruto's ki wave, and the waves broke apart on almost biblical proportions. How much further will you develop, Naruto? As he walked over to the young scion to congratulate him and start their training for the day, Roshi mused to himself. The youth would use every opportunity to talk to Bulma during his training breaks, asking her all kinds of questions about his father, and hearing her incredible tales of her adventures with him. When Naruto learned that there was a scheme to use the Dragon Balls, a magical set of 7-star orbs that could summon a great dragon and grant you one wish, to wish his father back, he used that wish to bring back Son Goku when the time was right. At this point, the only thing left to do was prepare for the swiftly approaching Scion threat. He was a natural-born prodigy when it came to martial arts, and the cane style seemed only fitting, given that it was the same form of martial arts that his father used. Naruto had become a near master in all the fighting forms, and the discipline required to use them effectively was constantly growing in the hyperactive boy. It has been exactly 6 months since Naruto found his Uncle Raditz and began training under his new master, Roshi. The effectiveness of meditation was unexpected. The young Scion man once again astounded the old master by adapting to his lessons. The lad seemed to have a natural talent to meditate. Was it his easygoing and carefree personality that made it so easy for Naruto? Or was it his Scion ancestry? Is it his humanity? Roshi was clueless, but he was certain that Naruto would keep developing, going above and beyond all expectations. Roshi grinned and said to himself, "It appears that the next generation is really talented," before beckoning Naruto over and shouting, "Lunch!" The sight of a grilled fish the size of a man, a fried octopus, a huge sushi platter, and enough rice to feed a family of 12 made Naruto's stomach rumble with anticipation. When the monkey-tailed boy wiped the drool from his lips, he sat down at the table and clapped his hands together while shouting, "Itadakimasu!" while wearing his trusty orange and yellow gi. Roshi chuckled and shook his head as he ate from his plate at a much more civilized speed, while Naruto was famished and devoured the food like a black hole, only pausing to sip juice from a straw before going back to his food like a beast. With a satisfied sigh, Naruto wiped his mouth with the back of his arm and smiled at his teacher, saying, "This is so good." "Thanks, Master Roshi," Roshi's remark. "It's no problem, my boy. We need to get you as strong as possible," caused Naruto to consider the impending danger and their potential strength. Setting aside his breakfast to concentrate on his teacher, Naruto said, "Hey Master, the Scions are going to be super tough, right?" Roshi murmured as he stroked his beard. "That is why every one of my students, your father's friends, are working as hard as they can. We may have greater numbers, but the Scions, if what I was told was true by Piccolo, then they are like nothing we have ever seen before. So the people we have aren't enough." Naruto sighed, resting his chin on his hand and furrowing his brows in contemplation. Roshi took a sip of his own drink and remarked absently, "Don't fret, my boy, we have you and your brother." He didn't fully realize what he had said until he turned to face Naruto and saw the Scion's jaw open as he processed the bombshell that the old master had just released. Naruto got up and slapped his palms on the table, exclaiming, H. I have a brother? Rubbed embarrassed at his bald head, Rashi remarked. Did I forget to mention that? When Naruto realized he had a brother, an actual brother, his pulse began to race. Where is he? What does he look like? He questioned. That's what he always wanted. As he attempted to visualize his brother's appearance, Rashi's remark, well, you could say you both look very similar except he has your father's dark hair and he has a tail like you, sent Naruto into a reverie. And I believe he is currently training with Piccolo, Rashi said. Piccolo, huh? Naruto asked his master, putting aside his thoughts of searching for his brother for the time being. Master, do you know if there is a way to heal someone super fast? The question had been on his mind for months. Naruto wasn't quite honest when he asked, Why do you ask, my boy? Because he couldn't disclose that it was for his uncle, the same man who killed his father. As he considered what Naruto had said, Rashi hummed, Just in case we need it for the upcoming battle, the old turtle hermit told his student. Well, there are the senzu beans. Just one will bring you back to full strength and any wound would be healed as if it never existed. Figuring it wouldn't hurt to introduce him to Korin so he could get to know the elderly cat. Perhaps it's time you see Kami's lookout while you're at it. You're definitely more than ready, he said. As he stood up, stretching his shoulders and performing some simple stretches to help his food digest more quickly, Naruto said, Then I'll head there right away. Where do I need to go, master? To the sacred lands of Korin, a bountiful forest to the west of the desert. There's a grand tower that reaches the sky itself. You can't miss it. Rashi, being as specific as possible to avoid confusion, said to his student. After shouting, Right, I'm on my way, and launching himself into the air in a flash of silver, Naruto returned to Rashi's house a few seconds later, grinning sheepishly as the scion youngster inquired. Master, which way is west? That way, my boy, Rashi said with a laugh, then gestured toward the west. I'm on my way! Naruto exclaimed once more as he left Kame's house and flew west in the hopes of getting his Uncle Raditz a senzu bean. Although he was recovering quickly, he wouldn't be able to assist when the scions arrived because he needed to be able to fight as soon as possible, and the senzu beans seemed to be the only way to do that. Naruto began to think about his brother as he flew through the clear blue sky, wondering once more what he looked and sounded like, whether he was gentle and kind or as impulsive and playful as Naruto. Nevertheless, the scion boy made a self-promise to find his brother after he had completely healed his uncle. Son Goku, the father of Naruto and Gohan, was practicing diligently under the guidance of his new tutor King Kai on a small planet in a world beyond Earth, or the heavens if you will, that was encircled by an unending supply of yellow clouds. Said scion was taking a rest, breathing heavily because his body was still getting used to King Kai's planet's gravity. He thanked the monkey bubbles and used a towel to wipe his face. Goku sighed as he sat on the soft grass and looked thoughtfully up at all the yellow clouds. After 6 months of worry, Goku finally arrived at King Yema's desk to learn that his brother had not died but was seriously injured and would not be able to recover without help. Troubled, Goku continued to run the long and vast Snake Way in hopes of receiving training from King Kai, but it wasn't until he reached the planet of said god and became his pupil that he discovered that Raditz had survived because his son had found him, a son Goku had no idea existed. With King Kai's assistance, Goku was able to see his son's appearance, and even learned his name just by looking at him. Naruto surprised the strongest warrior on Earth, especially since his son saw light in Raditz that Goku did not. Bardak's younger son believed his older brother was doomed, evil like the scions that were steadily moving toward Earth. But it appears that day by day, Naruto had started to chip away at the shield Raditz had put around himself, and perhaps he could save his brother in a way that Goku was unable to. For this reason, he had kept the news that Raditz was still alive. Even though he didn't know Naruto as well as Gohan, he still trusted him because he was his son. As he drank some tea and listened to his monkey Bubbles coo, King Kai complimented his new pupil, saying, "You're doing well, Goku. I'm sure you'll master the Kaioken in no time." Goku responded, "Hee hee, thanks King Kai. I already feel way stronger than how I was back on Earth," while smiling and joking at the large, blue-skinned man. As he observed Goku's strength increase, King Kai gave a wise nod. "Yes, your growth has been most impressive. You may become my most gifted student," he said. Unaccustomed to seeing the scions so absorbed in meditation, the Kai arched an eyebrow at his pupil and asked, "Thinking about your son?" Goku mumbled, "I can't believe I didn't know he was out there. Why didn't Suno tell me?" While he sighed and put his cheek on his hand. King Kai wisely remarked, "Who can say? Perhaps she had her reasons, perhaps she didn't wish to disrupt your life." Since he realized that only Suno could really understand why she did what she did. "Oh man, Chi-Chi! How am I going to explain this to her?" Goku murmured. "Maybe, but I'm sure she would have understood." As his eyes opened and he leaped to his feet, holding his head in desperation, King Kai correctly concluded, "Ha! I don't envy you, my pupil. From what I heard, your wife can be quite frightening." Not realizing how terrifying Goku's wife might be in her rage, Goku scratched the back of his head and remarked, "You have no idea." As he considered his wife, his sons, his friends, who were all undoubtedly working hard, and the scions, who were just 6 months away. "Just keep working hard, everyone. I'm excited to meet you, Naruto, and it won't be long before I return home." As Naruto flew for a good hour in search of the forest with the tall tower that his master had instructed him to locate, the son of Goku passed through the vast desert with his hand hovering above squinted eyes. The heat of the desert did not quite affect him from this height, but it gradually began to cause the scion youth to perspire. "Oof, it's hot here," Naruto muttered to himself as he looked around the area until he spotted what he thought was Korin's tower in a vast forest. He landed in a clearing and smiled and whistled as he admired the tall white pillar. Then he noticed a roaring fire and a large hut nearby. A young man with dark skin and bright eyes emerged from the cabin. He was obviously a local of these areas because of his long black hair braided and the red and white feather in the back of it. When he called out, a much bigger, even more intimidating man, whom Naruto could only surmise was the elder boy's father, came into view. "Who goes there?" "Yo, name's Son Naruto, nice to meet you." The scion boy waved to the father-son pair. "You wouldn't happen to be related to Son Goku?" the father asked the monkey-tailed youngster as he carefully approached. Naruto couldn't resist grinning impishly while scratching the back of his head. "Well, he is my father," he said. As he introduced his kid, the now-named Bora said, "Ahaha, I should have known with that smile and tail. It's a pleasure to meet you. My name is Bora and this is my son Upa. We're friends of your father." And his son imitated him by approaching Naruto to shake his hand. Naruto said in surprise, "I didn't realize my dad had so many friends. Your dad is a special person with a good heart. You can't help but want to become his friend," Bora and Upa said with a warm smile, remembering the spiky-haired youngster who dared to fight against the Red Ribbon Army and assist UPA in bringing his father back to life. "I'm starting to realize that," Naruto said softly as he looked up at the sky with a charming, genuine smile. In the hopes that he could assist Naruto, UPA asked, "What brings you out here?" Naruto pointed to the pillar with his thumb and informed the father and son. "My master sent me to Korin's tower and after that, Kami's lookout." When the native guy said, "Well, you're definitely in the right place. All you have to do is travel up that pillar and you'll find Korin." Naruto sighed with relief. Naruto began to make his way to the white stone building that was attached to Korin's tower, saying, "Awesome, I thought I was in the right place. Sorry I have to go, I'm kind of in a hurry. It was really nice meeting you both." "Good luck, Naruto," Bora said, bidding the Scion youngster farewell as Naruto began to float and then launched himself with a wave of his own. Bora and Pua vanished into insignificant dots on the ground in a matter of minutes, and Naruto had still not arrived at Korin's tower. It took him 5 more minutes to reach the oval dome structure that is Korin's tower after passing through the clouds. Naruto floated gently onto the floor and hummed as he looked around before focusing on a big, fluffy cat standing on his hind legs with one arm behind his back and the other holding a stick that was a makeshift cane. Naruto assumed the animal was sleeping, so he approached and petted the fluffy white cat without hesitation. He then got a smack on his head as a reward for his trouble, saying, "Hey!" The cat, who was obviously Korin, was humiliated to be petted by the Scion child and exclaimed, "What the hell is the matter with you? You don't go around petting people." The reply was, "I didn't know you could talk," as Naruto rubbed his head. Korin sighed in frustration and replied, "Try asking next time." Naruto said, "You're right, I'm sorry," looking ashamed at his own error. As Korin couldn't help but feel that Naruto reminded him of someone, he said, "Don't worry, kid. Now, what can I do for you?" "I was sent here by Master Roshi because I was curious about senzu beans," Naruto said, hoping the elderly cat would give him one bean anyhow. As Korin guided Naruto to a large pot and opened the cover to see it was filled with green beans, she said, "I see, so you're curious about senzu beans, huh?